Good evening, and welcome to Educate Our Youth. My name is Janet Thompson. I am the CEO and co-founder of the Mamie Keith and Aline Bradley Educational Foundation, also known as Educate Our Youth. The mission of Educate Our Youth is to make college more accessible through education, mentoring, professional development, and any other means available to students by offering programs such as ACT and SAT workshops, tour college campuses, and assist with applying for financial aid, young entrepreneurship, and athletes and academics. In celebration of, well, before I get to that point, I just want to say I haven't spoken to anyone since November. So I hope everyone have a prosperous and healthy new year this year, 2021. In celebrating Black History Month, I'm fortunate to introduce to you someone I've been knowing for almost 50 years, someone who is very prevalent in the Columbia area, and someone that made history here in the state of South Carolina. When we were desegregating, she started the catalyst of desegregation began in Charleston, South Carolina in the 1960s. But she actually entered the school system, broke the color barrier in 1963. So let's welcome Miss Oveta Glover from Columbia, South Carolina. Also, she calls herself the young Ruby Bridges. So hello, Oveta. How are you?
Hello, my friend, and to the audience. Happy Black History Month. Thank you for having me as well.
You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. As we were kind of conversating earlier, the process actually started in 1960, correct?
Correct.
So can you kind of fill us in on that a little bit?
Well, of course, the NAACP implemented most of the activities for school integration, public school integrations. And Charleston was chosen because of those leaders in that area that were so adamant about breaking that barrier. So in 1960, it was 3 of us, and I was the youngest one. That's why I call myself the Ruby Bridges.
Yeah.
The South Carolina Ruby Bridges.
Bridges, right.
We attempted to integrate 3 schools, a elementary school, a junior high, and a high school. Well, because of some technicalities for all 3 of them, we were not able to do that and had to go sit back around the table and really planned out to see how this should be taken. Because be mindful now, the law was passed in 1954. However, South Carolina didn't do anything until 10 years later.
Right.
I don't know what's up with South Carolina, but we always slow about making a move and they want to take charge.
Exactly. Exactly.
So with that being said, we began there, and in 1963 is when we actually put feet, I should say, because it was 11 of us in the different schools that we integrated in September of 1963.
I saw in some of my research in 1960 where your father was at Mother Emanuel, and there was a community meeting there with Dr. King. Did you get an opportunity to meet him during that time?
Well, I saw him, yes, but I didn't know who I was meeting, okay?
Okay.
Because I was so young, but
Right.
that was the one of the leaders for NAACP in Charleston. He was president at the time. But I always jokingly say this. It was whenever my father cranked his car up, I was asking Dad where you're going. If he was going to a funeral or if he was going to an NAACP meeting. Guess who had to be with him? Yes, I
You.
had. Yeah. And I think it's all about the excitement of it, seeing the people, the camaraderie that the people were having, the
Mm-hmm.
joyfulness, the seriousness, the singing, the shouting, the all of that just as
Yeah.
a child, it just touched me as a child, and I wanted to be a part of that. So they started in 60, as I was saying, in 63,
Yeah.
they started down for the next 2, 3 years and say, hey, this is how we're planning. If you'd like to be on board. And so the 11 families got together, they would meet. We went through trainings of how to act, you know what I mean? And Janet, you know me, you know how feisty I am. So,
Yes.
so of course my
Was it
mom had to school me a lot.
was it
So
difficult? Was it difficult keeping your mouth closed? Not
um no, they didn't tell me to keep my mouth closed.
okay.
They just said, be careful of what I say.
Say,
You
yeah.
know, you got to treat everybody kind. Their major word to me was be kind. And
Okay.
yet this day, I one of my saying is a smile will carry you a long way. And I truly believe in that. And that's where the kindness
Yeah.
comes because people don't know which way to take you when you're smiling, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So back then, it was difficult, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I blocked it almost 50 years.
Oh,
It was
really?
because of um, what we went through, what my family went through. My mother had to leave town because they would not give her a teaching job. She's a teacher by trade.
Right. Right.
But because we were involved in the civil rights arena at that time, and Charleston wasn't about all of that at that time, my mother
Right.
not she could not retain her job, so she
Oh
had to go
man.
money. So she had to go, and she went to Kentucky State and taught there for a year.
Okay.
So
Okay.
imagine a young girl my age, when she went, I was 7, 8 years old, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that had to depend on her father combing her hair or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And so, and the mother's not being there, but we got through it. Of course, I blocked it because of some of the things that were said, the names I was being called, and
Okay.
just the ugliness of it. I think the most important part was watching what my parents went through
Mm-hmm.
as a young girl, you know, and hearing their stories as well. So,
Because at the age of you were 8, I think in 63, going into third grade.
I was 9 years old,
You're
yes.
9.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you were very young. You're a baby, more or less, and having to, were you in a class by yourself, or were there others, your age group that was in the class with you, or did they separate you?
The particular school that we integrated, which was James Simmons Elementary School in Charleston on King Street, there was three of us that went. It's two of us that were 9 years old, and then we had a young lady that was 10. And yes, we were separated, even
Okay.
even during the times to for recess. They don't call
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we were together. But there was this kind girl that was in the class, and she wasn't about all of that mess. And we
Okay.
befriended each other. Of course, she had issues. They began to call her the N word lover, in lover, that kind of stuff too.
Right.
And
Right.
she lived down the street from me, and she asked her
Oh.
mother one time, could I spend the night? Now her parents were very nice to me, but of course the parents said no. And she said to this day, we met back up about 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Okay.
the time that we spent and talked about what went on back then. Some of the things, being that I blocked it out, she brought back to memory. And
Okay.
Yeah, so that was enlightening in itself. So she just said she just could not understand why people were like that at that time. Even to this day, we are still going through the same thing that we went through
We
in the
are.
early. Yes.
Hmm. We are. More things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know. Yeah.
And that's
So.
what I
Oh,
always say, you my motto in life, this is my personal one. You listen, you learn, you teach, you love. You listen to your surrounding. You learn from what you've heard, and you teach what you've heard and listened to. And then you can love everybody because you'll understand. So those are
right.
the, yeah. And I truly believe that. Mhm.
So you were in third grade. So now when you're going into fourth, fifth, and sixth, it still wasn't entirely integrated. I don't recall South Carolina totally integrating until 1970. So you went to school several years with just predominantly white students, correct?
Yes, except for the three. And there was a domino effect because Columbia started integrating in 1964, and it just went up the
Okay.
street like that. Okay, so
Okay.
for the total, and all the schools in Columbia in '64 it was just one school that integrated. As you have said, it was in the '70s when it was totally integrated. So
Right. Hmm.
all around the state. So it was up to the late '70s, as a matter of fact, in some of the rural areas.
Well, it was, and believe it or not, my husband taught at Choppy High School. Choppy and Mayo, which is in Darlington, they were the last two schools to integrate, and he went there in 1999.
Yeah.
And they were
See.
mandated by the federal government. They had to integrate. So that's when they built Carvers Bay. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Mayo became Darlington High School, something to that effect. So they were somehow got under the radar, which they wasn't discovered until 1999. Whereas in 1970, Whittemore High was no longer, and we became Conway High School.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it like I said, South Carolina's slow, but we
Yeah,
catch up with it. Eventually, run with it. Those were some very, very trying times in the '60s. Anyone that has not had the did not have the opportunity to see or hear some of the activities, or I call myself a little fortunate because my parents were involved in it. I was able
right.
to Rock Peters. I was able to meet Martin Luther King that was at the church. And
Mhm.
uh, to mention the Mother Emanuel, my father, in the history of the church to this day, it was the longest serving pastor for Mother Emanuel to
Yes.
this day. I'm very proud of that fact as well.
Hmm. I
Um,
read that also.
okay.
Yeah.
So, it's in my blood. I had to do something.
Yeah.
I just couldn't stand by and not let his statue
Yes.
not be seen, and it could be seen through me as well.
Right. And I know he's looking down on you smiling.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was glad I had the opportunity to meet him.
Okay.
Yeah. So Vito, how was the like the learning process? Did you have difficulty in the classroom and learning did that affect your ability at all?
Oh, no, 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 no. And again, my parents were teachers and a preacher, so they had a
Yeah.
lot to do with how I reacted to what was going on in class. Okay.
Okay.
I know when we first went to, my father took me to the school and they told me where the class was. And the teacher greeted us very stern and said, "That's your seat back there."
Mm.
Well, where did that put me? And I'm not a back row child.
Right.
Never
Right.
had, that. So I went
Right.
in, and that's where I met the young lady, and we befriended each other. Because I was in the back and when we went to rehearse. But so far as the schooling and the teaching was concerned, I really could not tell the difference.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because when I was at the A.B. Rhett Elementary School, that teacher, that black teacher, had my attention. And if I wasn't paying her attention, we had to pay attention.
Right.
This one, I felt obligated to pay attention because of what I was being told and taught. When you're there, you pay attention to the teacher. You
Right.
know that was the difference. My
Okay.
grades were good. I didn't have any bad grades. Um, so I learned what I could through without being mistreated. I wasn't ever mistreated, and I think that fact, the only mistreatment I had was not being able to socialize with the children because of what children mimic what they are taught.
Parents. Right. Right.
So they
Right.
were told, don't mess with that little N-word girl. I know it because they used to call me that.
Right.
But again, I'm gonna relate to my parents because they say, don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling themselves that. Just think about that. Um, the N-word means black, that kind of stuff. So that
Right.
kind of lifted my spirit. When I said lift my spirit, didn't make me think that it was a negative term, which it was a negative term,
Right.
but so that I would not develop an attitude to cause any problems while
Mm-hmm.
I was at the school. They just kind of turned me right to, another corner to make me think a different way about the word in.
Well,
So go ahead.
I was gonna say your parents was great, and the way they established the rapport with you in reference to going to being one of the first blacks to integrate a school, and to go to that school and worry. I'm sure they worried about what was going on during the day. How was anybody putting their hands on you, anything, things of that nature. But you had to be a tough little girl to endure that. You really did.
Yes, and I I said I was feisty, but
Yeah.
but with their support, y'all, I would not have been able to do it because the children can be so cruel, you know,
Yes.
and they are just like I said earlier, they are mimicking what they are taught or see and
Hmm.
hear. Only
Hmm.
thing children say it a little meaner. You know what I mean? Because out of the
Right.
bad mouths of babes, and we have to succumb to what is being said. I couldn't say anything back. That kind of stuff. That's the only issue that I had because I couldn't say anything
They
back.
came back. Right. Right.
Yeah. And
And
eventually, as I moved into the fourth grade, that third year was just traumatic. It was just, I
because that
can't.
was your first year, right?
Yeah, that was the
That was
first
your
year.
first year. Yeah.
So I had to go home every day and give a report of what went on so they could see if they needed to intercede.
Yeah.
Um, call the principal teacher. Did the teacher say anything derogatory? And she was very careful. I could not remember her saying anything
Okay.
out of wax like that. So,
Because a
but
lot was laying on the line with them too, as far as integration was concerned. Federal money, that what you know what I'm saying?
yes,
Yeah. So they
yeah,
wanted that to work,
yeah,
so that school would get the federal dollars.
right, right. But I never did get a chance to move up front. And I did ask that question.
Oh, you did. Okay.
I can recall asking that question, and her answer was because the seats were already assigned and you were new.
That
That
was a
was the
good that was a
that,
good excuse for her. Yeah.
yes. It was the only one that she could
Yeah.
use,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and get by with it. But
Hmm.
moving into the fourth grade, things kind of relaxed a little bit. I felt a little more comfortable on the recess ground because I had my friend. She got above what they were calling her because we, um, just connected and the
Right.
connection. And then she moved at the end of the grade year, so I had to regroup. But I'll tell you what I fell in love with. I took up violin lessons,
Took up
and my
what?
violin,
A
violin
violin. Okay.
lessons. And at the school, we had the violin teacher. That's why I was into that. And
Okay.
I was devastated because he received another teaching assignment out of state and he left. When I tell you I was devastated because there was my peace of mind that music had
Okay.
me He was a nice man. I could just remember him saying, just concentrate on your music. Don't
Okay.
worry about anything. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So when he left, I was like, oh my, it devastated me. And my mom was like, she was in question, why is it that, and my father would say that was her safe haven. That
Mm-hmm.
got across the day, and which it was. Uh,
Right.
fifth grade teacher, I could not stand. She was very mean.
I think it's just a fifth grade teacher. I had one too. We were all but before we even integrated.
Okay,
She was mean as I don't know what. That has to be just a character, fifth grade teachers.
all right, that might be it then. I'll take
Yeah.
that. Anyway, so we moved on. I got through the fifth grade year, and of course, um, we moved to Columbia.
Okay.
Yeah, because Dad became the president of Allen University, so that took
Right.
us sixth grade. Sixth grade was done in Columbia as well.
Okay.
But I would tell anybody if they get an opportunity to be the first for something, reach
Mm-hmm.
out and do it because you're opening a pathway for somebody else.
You,
Everyone won't be as brave as you and I, making the first, or everyone doesn't have the parents that you and I may have had or have. So if you got something that you really want to do, stick to it. Open paths for other people. We've got youth right now to this day that are clueless. We have to continue to teach our history so
mm-hmm.
that they will know from whence they came, so that they know the purpose of us integrating. And the integration wasn't about us going to a white school. It was all about equality.
Mm-hmm.
Equality of having books that weren't torn out or having Jane, Joe, and Harry's name written all through it.
Right, right.
Yeah, teachers being able to get the salary that they're supposed to get, and they're still not to that point.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I will say to you in reference to being the first. I was the first Black person to work in probate court here in Horry County. And because there had never been a Black person in that department, it was challenging. It was challenging. But the judge was had a beautiful soul. I didn't have problems with her. It was just the other workers in there. And so but I was an adult though, grown with children. So it just took a few times for me to put them in the place, and I did that, and it worked out okay. So listen, in today's society, with schooling the way it is, Ms. Garner and I were talking about trying to get kids to. They're not seem to want to sign up for college anymore. I'm trying to find a way to reach out to them. What would you suggest or advise parents on when it comes to getting your children motivated to go to school? Even just go to high school. Some kids are dropping out of high school right now. And what is it what's missing? Or what can a parent tell a child or a school? What kind of advice would you give
Well,
to
I
them?
think that I believe and I strongly believe that it has to start in the home. The parents have to know the importance of. Okay, if you have a parent that may have dropped out, they're not going to understand why it's so important. They may say, I don't want you to do like I did. Okay,
Yeah,
but you need to be able to have a reason why you don't want them to do like I did. And just saying that does not give a youth any reason to, like I said, they mimic what they see and hear. Okay.
right,
But if you had to do that because, uh, um, your parent lost a job, so back in that day we had to all pool together and go to work or da.
right.
Then give that reason. Let them know. Tell them why you did that and say, hey, I'm even thinking about going back. As old as I am, we've got to encourage our youth And we've got to also speak our language, but speak it where they can understand it.
Right.
You know, when you and I was coming up, our parents had a totally different language than what you and I
Exactly.
spoke. But at least I know mine would say, "Do you understand?" And I look like
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll break it down. You know,
Right, right,
and that's
right.
what parents have to do within the home. And we, during our time and during times, period, everybody, the village, there was a strong village.
It was. It
Our
was.
village is broken right now. And
Mhm.
we have got to come together and get that village back together. We need to let our students understand that we are there to support them,
Mhm.
whichever way, form, of fashion. Doing the gun violence, doing the drugs, and all of the fast monies, all of that'll go away. And
Yes.
you're going to be either locked up, that's one way it's going to go away. You're going to be killed, that's another way all of that will go away.
Mhm.
Or you would lose someone very special to you, which will be a part of you going away. So we need to encourage to just let them know, hear this type of dialogue from us. Let them answer questions. Give them an
Okay.
opportunity to say, hey, Miss Glover, it'll fit. Give them an opportunity to be a part of what you want done. Not just this is what needs to be done and this is what you're going to do.
Right.
And I
Right.
just think that way you get, yeah.
Yeah, I think bringing the parents, getting the parents involved somehow, or educating the parents on means of how to communicate with the kids. Because sometimes, and then you know the age of, you got a 16-year-old student and you got a 29-year-old mom. You know what I'm saying? So, and she's young, and she still don't know, because I have grown children now, 40, 46. But I tell them both they didn't grow up until they was in their 30s.
Mhm.
And that's how I see it started, right? Yeah, because they don't when they're in their 20s. They still got a lot of growing to do. So if we could get parents to get on a cord, find some way to reach out to them, and hopefully make education a want to have, a must do,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
And
And
then
with
I hear folks say, you know, education is not for everybody. It is just, you know, you have people that work better with their hands, but they still have to learn how to use their hands.
hmm
You know
hmm
what I mean? If it's
right,
welding, if that's a hand job, it's welding, but you got to learn how to weld.
right,
Regardless,
right.
regardless of what it is, you still have to learn or be taught. So find your niche and get taught in that niche and run the world with it.
hmm
Do what you need to do in order to survive legally, you know.
And the great thing about it is, none of the children now have to endure what you endured, you know, at the age of 8 in third grade. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
mean, to say that you had the strength, you had the
yeah,
courage, along with the parents, to see that through when you did. And to now, with everything being handed to them, and it's they got it easy, so they don't have to make any sacrifices. They pretty much don't. And maybe that could be one of the problems. They don't have to
yeah,
make any
yeah,
sacrifices. But
right.
what
And
you
then
did and what you
what I see, I'm sorry to break you, but while I had this thought,
yeah.
I see history repeating itself. The school
hmm
systems are going back, black and white. Okay, I'm
hmm
feeling some kind of way about that because all of the transitions that I went through to make it happen. I
Right.
hear people say that we should have never integrated school, but again, I say it wasn't about going to the white school. It's about equality. Well, why couldn't we get the books that we needed back then? Because we could not afford it. That's how we were looked at. We were secondhand people.
Right.
So everything we got, hand me down clothes, hand me down, you know, and then unless you could afford to go out and do what you need to do in the education world. But I am floored because I see the system repeating itself historically, going back into that, and it's not good. And even if we have Black leaders now, um,
Where are they?
yes, in the
Where
school,
are they?
the
Yeah.
people in the school system running the schools and stuff. Well, come on now, don't forget from which you came.
Right,
And
right.
it's more the Black kids. I commend you because it's more the Black history than the typical people that we hear about.
Mm-hmm.
Schools should be teaching Black history, African American history.
Right. They don't even
Um,
have that. That's not even part of the curriculum now. And it was in 1970, 71 to 73, I think it was. And after that, it may have gone higher. It might be just 75. But I know after that, they removed the Black History course from the curriculum. But listen, Oveta, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You have endured in your childhood. You've persevered. You're doing fantastic. And I just wanted the community to hear your story, during Black History Celebration, because that is a lot of history. And I'm glad that you brought it, that you're no longer suppressing, what you experienced, because it needs to be told. As
yeah,
many times as
if
you can
we
tell it.
if we had the time, we would sit down and I'll tell you some of it like I should be telling it, but I can't tell. I really can't say what I need to want to be saying on this
Right.
appreciate you having me and giving me the opportunity. I'd be welcome to come back again.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
I want to encourage those of you that are listening. If you're not a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which is an organization called NAACP, please, we need your support. The NAACP has been around since 1909, and guess what? It's going to be there. The
Yeah.
NAACP has seen other movements come and go, and
Mhm.
they will see movements come and go.
Exactly.
NAACP has done wonders for the people of America, and we need to keep them strong so they can continue to do so.
Oh, yes. Especially
Yeah.
in the future ahead of us. After January 6th, and we see what happened this past weekend. So, yeah, we do need to stay in the loop.
And don't go to sleep on January the 6th. Believe me, they're sitting back planning.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
listen, you have a wonderful evening. Be safe out there.
Okay, you do the same.
All right. Good talking to you. Hopefully we'll talk again
As soon as this
face to
pandemic,
face.
yes, that's what I was getting ready to say. I need to come by the water.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Oveta. Take
All
care.
right,
And
then. Thank
have a
you.
good evening.
You too. Good night.
Good night.